All right. So why don't we get started? Oh, cool. Here's Mitch. Why don't we get started?
Cool.
Take it away, man.
Well, it's good to see you all. And this is, of course, one of my favorite topics because I get to be in Accelerator world all the time, and it's fun to share what's going on in Accelerator world. So I put together a quick deck for you all, and I'll go over what I'm going to share in a few minutes. But I don't want to talk for more than 10 minutes on this. Meaning, I'll share this information, and then would love to just hear from you all about any thoughts you have about accelerators. And I'll just say this, a quick background on me is I started my career at the American Red Cross in Washington, D.C., ended up being chief of staff there, left that to join a small startup that was supporting nonprofit hospitals and getting low-income people access to prescription drugs. We ended up selling that company, and then I joined Techstars, where I led their growth and started GAN. And I fully took over GAN in 2014 out of that. So with that, I get excited to share this, which is what in the world is going on with accelerators. So this data, can you guys see my screen okay?
No, it did for a second, then went away.
Cool, is it showing? Let me do this then. Give me 1 second. James, you're going to see yourself. There you are.
No, we're good.
How's now?
Yeah, now we can see it.
Okay, cool, great. So really quickly, who is this data coming from? Well, it's coming from GAN, which is a highly curated community of independent accelerators, partners, and investors. And through, we are looking to create opportunities for startups to access the human and financial capital they need to create powerful businesses and make an impact wherever they call home. Simply stated, our mission is to give startups the power to create and grow their businesses and make an impact. And we see accelerators as one of the best ways to go and do this. And it's mainly because our motivation is really this. We believe that the jobs power our cities. We believe that startups create incredible value, and not just monetary value we're talking here, but we'll say value overall for our societies. And we also see startups being great wealth creators. And this is not making Jeff Bezos richer. This is us going to get people out of poverty. We don't know of a better way than early stage companies to pull people out of poverty than startups. And there's a lot more there we can talk about. But what we're going to cover today is this. It's really these 8 areas, and forgive the bad font on the right-hand side. But effectively, we're going to dig into what are accelerator models that we're seeing today. What are some of the terms that accelerators are offering? Where are they finding deal flow? How are accelerators, how are they raising money, and what do their budgets look like? How are mentors leveraged? A little bit of diversity, and then we'll talk about some startup successes and future trends. But let's dig into this. So this data is coming from GAN's 122 accelerators in 126 locations around the world. And they're spread in over 109 different cities on 6 continents. And what we do is we ask GAN accelerators each year to give us a ton of data. And this year comes from accelerators, of which 48% are in the States, 51% are abroad, 18 are new accelerators, and just over 40 are what we call full members. These are people that have been around for a while and run accelerators for a long time. So let's talk about the typical model, right? It's this. It's number one, they're short-term models. Accelerator programs usually run 3 to 6 month-long programs working in small groups. Usually it's small teams that are joining 2 to 5 people. Companies are joining the accelerator programs. And typically they're co-located. This is changing a little bit with COVID, but most of the time they are co-located, meaning they all go to one site, either for the duration of the 3 to 6 months or for a part of it. And one of the key benefits of an accelerator is it's usually mentorship driven. Mentors somewhere, I think it's like, we'll get into the stats a little bit, but a group of mentors is usually coming alongside those small groups of startups, and they're getting funding from the accelerator. The accelerator, it's very, very infrequent that accelerator will charge. It's almost always given money, and it's almost always early stage, and it's super competitive along the way. When we look about last year, there's been just under 1,800 companies that graduated from an accelerator, which means that we're about 11 startups per cohort that went through. So we talked about that small cohort model. Typically, it was 11 startups that went through each cohort on average. And they spend about 19 weeks on average at the accelerator program. Again, making it short term. We also saw a bunch of cohorts graduating. So not only were there like, we'll say accelerator programs, but a lot of times accelerators had multiple different cohorts at their program. Last year, 147 of those ones we surveyed graduated, which meant there were an average of 2.7 cohorts for each accelerator. What that means is people are bringing in 3 different classes a year. And a lot of times they're overlapping. So they may start one in January, may start one in April, may start one, we'll say, in September, but an average of 2.7 cohorts per year. Let me just move my screen real quick because I want to be able to see this a little bit better. So just in terms of COVID, how this changed things a lot. Number one, lots of accelerators went to shifted their demo days to being virtual. This made a ton of sense. You don't want people to be in a giant theater where people are pitching ideas to one another. So 70% of accelerators switched their demo days to virtual. Hey, I'm going to shut this door real quick. My daughter is breaking down. Let me just shut this so I can focus a little bit more. We told the kids, because I tested positive this morning, everyone's got to go get a quick COVID test. And my daughter does not want to go. She's 5. So she's upstairs breaking down because she doesn't want to go.
They're just tickling her nose. That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. We're just getting a little tickle. No big deal at all. So no, she's so upset. So 40% of accelerators increase their budget for technology, which makes sense. We got to spend more money on Zoom and other tools. 22% of accelerators increase the number of startups they supported. So we saw many of them went, hey, we're remote. We actually can work with more startups. We have more budget to do this. 22% of accelerators ended with their office space lease, which makes sense. And 20% of accelerators decreased their staff size. Not being in person meant that we don't need to have as big a staff anymore. In terms of money that's going to startups, the average amount of investment that was given to a startup was right around $54,000 last year. And in return for this is what they're getting. 90% of the time, ton of coaching on pitching. 87% of the time, lots of legal help. 85% of the time, bunch of marketing and press support. 85% of the time, there was an office or co-working space that was offered. And then 70% of the time, professional coaching that was given. This is in addition to everything else we talked about before, which is mentors coming alongside of them. But just at the highest level, when we said, what are you offering? This is what they said they're offering through and through. They're also taking 6% equity stake on average for each program. And it's competitive. I talked about this earlier, but there were 32,000 applications that came in for all these programs, which meant that there was an average acceptance rate of just about 5%. When we asked accelerators what they're looking for, here's what they said. 57% of the time, it was agnostic. They didn't care. 32% of the time, they're looking for financial services. 32% of the time, looking for SaaS companies. 30% of the time, data analytics. 27% of the time, healthcare. 27% of the time, AI. There's a bunch more down here, like ed tech, transportation, clean energy below this. But we were saying, hey, what were the top verticals that were sought across the board? These were the 6 that came up over and over again. This is also something that's interesting is we asked, where are your mentors coming from? And what they found is that 82% of the time, mentors were local. And I think this makes a lot of sense. You guys were on the beginning of the call talking about how there's a new accelerator coming to Rochester and you guys were trying to figure out ways to help them. This is amazing, right? It's the fact of like, accelerators are local entities. They always have been. Like I think it might be in this deck, but usually 60 to 70% of companies are coming from also 100 miles or 160 kilometers. So there's this really good forcing mechanism which really focuses on something local. But 82% of mentors come from being from local and from your locality. And there's usually 124 mentors involved at each accelerator location with a median of 75 mentors per location. So just taking another stab at this, what I mean is there's a lot of accelerators that have 200, 250 mentors, but the median is 75 mentors per location. And I'm on this because this is one of the key benefits of accelerators, but we're asking them, how much are you, what type of work are you doing as a mentor? 40% of the time, mentors are working with multiple startups. They'll come in and do a giant class on growth hacking, right? Or a giant class on something related to legal, but they're working with multiple startups. 21% are getting paired with a team. So effectively what that means is they're coming in and saying for maybe a day or a week or even the whole program, they're just mentoring one specific team. And 39% of the time, they're just coming in and giving a presentation. They're not even talking with anybody on a one-on-one basis. This is also just fun to see is going, what's the diversity look like in the accelerator world? What's fun is in 2020, 40% of teams had a woman on their founding or executive team. Compared to all the companies that we've worked with over the years, 34% of them have a female on the founding or executive team. And then going to the other side, if you have somebody on your team who identifies as part of a racial or ethnic minority, in 2020, 37% of founders were, compared to all-time 31%. So that's going up in a really cool way. The other thing I wanted to highlight here is on accelerators. How many accelerators have a team member identifying as a racial ethnic minority? 2/3 of them do. And look at sort of below how many accelerator teams have someone who identifies as a female. What's awesome is the average per accelerator is 56% of accelerators have someone on their team who identifies as a female. So excuse me, the percentage of accelerators that have a female on their team, almost 100%. And the other part above that is almost half of all accelerators say that accelerators are saying that over half their teams have a female on them. So just fun to see, like, again, like it used to be sort of a guys game, and now we're seeing most teams, 56% of their teams have women on them, which is just super, again, super cool to see. Okay, are accelerators helping? This is the big question. They could be doing mentoring, they could be doing all this stuff, but are they helping? And this is what I like seeing. When a startup raises money, the average amount of money that they're raising in the 12 months following an accelerator is $414,000 on average. The median is $350,000. So again, some companies are making a ton more, but I would sort of go, the median amount, which is super cool, is that the startups are leaving raising $350,000. And that's globally. That's globally. And that's also for our new accelerators, as well as the ones that have been around for years. That's the median amount for all of those. Also, accelerators have a giant follow. Many accelerators have a follow-on fund, which means that not only may they have given the $53,000 up front, but 22% of the time they have a fund which is doubling, tripling, quadrupling the amount of investment that they put in initially. And the average accelerator fund is about $3.4 million. And when they write a check from that, usually that investment size is $200,000 that's going into the companies. Last thing for today, what are the trends we're seeing in the accelerator space? So number one, there's 5 trends. Number one, 67% of the time, accelerators said we're going to be virtual. This makes sense with COVID. I'm seeing this to be about the same, that 2/3 are staying virtual. It just makes sense for the time that we're in. Next one, a lot of them say they're going to continue to host virtual demo days. Again, no one wants to be in a room with people coughing and hacking, so going to do virtual demo days. Next one, 23% of accelerators said they're going to focus on later stage startups. But I think this next point's super interesting. 13% said they're going to focus earlier stage. I've never seen a number where people said they're going to focus earlier stage until last year. It kept being this thing about let's go later. It's the first time we're seeing people go, actually, we need to go back to where we were, back to our roots. So we're seeing people now move towards actually a focus on earlier stage. 12% of accelerators are running something with a partner organization. A partner organization could be a corporate, could be a nonprofit, could be a university, but we're seeing accelerators say more and more they want to run with a partner. And the final thing I'll just highlight is this, right? It is sort of tying this all back together, which is 22% say they're going to run with a partner organization. 20% say they're going to add a post accelerator into this. I'm so sorry. Here's what I was going with this. These are the trends that we did see happen in 2020. And these are the trends that people said they were going to do this year in 2021. So they said, number one, we are going to run a partner organization. They may have done this in 2020. They said, for sure, we're going to go run a 22% said we are definitely going to go run something with a partner organization in 2021. 20% of accelerators said that we're going to go do a post-accelerator program in addition to their regular accelerator program. 20% said they're going to add another location. 70% said they're going to do a pre-accelerator in addition to running their current accelerator. And 50% said they're going to focus on later stage startups. I'm going to blame that little hiccup there on COVID. But that's it for today. I wanted to fly through that because I feel like there's so much I'd rather talk about versus just share a deck. And I think I went 4 minutes over the time I said I was going to talk. But at least I'll stop there and open up for questions and thoughts from you guys.
That was great, Pat. I mean, I've got a number of people on the call who either run, have run, interested in running, or somehow tangentially related to an accelerator. So I think hopefully we'll get some interesting conversation. I'm curious, I'll kick it off.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I want to pick on that one point you mentioned about there seems to be a little bit, almost an equal split of companies who have thought about going later stage versus now this new trend of going earlier stage. What do you think is driving that?
Downstream capital. I think it's this thing of people going, who's going to get funded and when. It's really interesting to see how many VCs, brand name VCs, are moving into the early stage. Right. And I think because of that, you've got two things going on. You've got people going, hey, if that's the case, like I now need to move earlier. Or for the last 3 or 4 years, I've actually been moving sort of, we'll say, downstream a little bit, and then now focus on maybe companies that are more, we'll say, seed stage plus, getting into A, but they're going, no. Like they're now too expensive or whatever. I sort of, we'll say, lost my mojo, so I need to go back. But I would say the main reason for it is the capital is now looking for early stage deals. So therefore they're following the capital.
I remember, that was a challenge that we had with StartFest, was like marketing an accelerator to a certain crowd. All of a sudden they're going, but some guy is willing to write me a check for whatever and not make me go to class every day, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And exactly. It was just a hard sell. I was wondering if that was part of that or if there was a different strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think accelerators inherently are really good at the pre-seed and seed stage. And I think it's easy to go, oh yeah, let's start working with Series A companies. Like, I feel like we can get more, the bets we take are more sure. And I just think it's just harder. It's just harder the later you get down the road.
Yeah.
I think there's a piece to that as well, that once you're at that, like you've passed your seed and you're moving, you've got 10, 15 employees or whatever, like
yes,
most of your answers are right there on the whiteboard, and you just got to keep grinding and doing, and like getting a mentor to come in and give you like a little bit of advice versus like right now, I just started my company 9 weeks ago. I do have James's problem, right? I've already raised too much money that like equity wise, like it'd be really hard for me to join an accelerator for the price. But like what I could really use right now is an accelerator, right? Like I could really use being in a 12-week focus thing and convince somebody else to come with me and fully dedicate their time.
That's right. No, it's funny. Like, I run GAN, right? It's the Global Accelerator Network. And right. And you've got 14 employees. And Zach, I'm the same way as you. It's like, oh, it'd be so good to go through a program, but leaving the team for 3 months, like it would be impossible. So I'm fine. Like, I have to do like intense coaching, instead, but it's harder as a 14-person company to go and do something like this and give up the time.
That was one of the drivers when we actually decided, it was total serendipity. The last cohort we had on the accelerator model for StartFast was 2020. Yeah. And we had decided prior to COVID to go virtual for that reason.
Yeah.
We kind of tried to go upstream. We found a lot of them. That was a main, they were like, oh, okay, I buy into the mentorship and I could use it, especially if I'm kind of like a first-time founder, but I can't leave. And I'm like, well, why don't we just do this virtually? Like, anyway, just so that they don't have to pick up and leave for 3 months, especially if they have kids, you can respect that.
Yeah.
I wonder,
So
yeah, that's interesting.
I have a follow-on question for that though, and this is
Exactly.
for Patrick, which is like, so I have kids, three of them, fourth on the way, like been traveling, all this kind of stuff. Uh, I guarantee a virtual experience would not be as impactful for me because I have kids, because I didn't like actually move and go do it and work on it 18, 19 hours a day. So I wonder what's the outcome that you've seen so far with the switch to virtual?
Man, this was the all network call I had this morning. Had all of our accelerators, all of our startup studios on. And I mentioned that we run GSSN, the Global Startup Studio Network. And the conversation today was on hybrid and remote models. And I asked our one accelerator, we had one studio, one accelerator, asked our accelerator, I'm like, hey, so let's talk about outcomes between remote and in person. I'm like, what are you seeing? And he's like, oh, there's a drastic difference. My remote ones are not as close to us. They're not hustling as much. They're also not getting connected to investors as much, all because they're not around us day to day. And I just thought it's, I think we can scale this more being remote. Like there's more companies we're able to serve, but I think we'll say maybe I don't know if quality is not the right word, but our ability to have as much impact, it's lessened because of hybrid.
Yep, I could see that.
Yep.
Did
Kind of a bummer.
that changed how people recruit, especially since a lot of them have an economic development focus? I'm curious.
Okay. Yes. That's what another question as well I'm asking. In the honest answer is it's still such a local game. I'd say what we're seeing before COVID, 70% of companies came from within 100 miles. In COVID, it's gone down to like 60%, but still, almost 2/3 of companies are still local. So I'm like, I was talking to our Tampa guys and they're like, I'm like, are you finding companies out of Tampa? They're like, not really. Talk to our LA guys. Are you finding things outside of LA? Nope, we're still focused on LA. It's so interesting how much geography is still such a forcing mechanism. And I don't know if that'll change if we're still like this in a year or two, but right now it's still a local game.
You think
I
it
don't
might
want
be?
to.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'd say I don't want to take over the conversation. I
Oh,
think
great.
I have other players on here. So it seems like to me that's a sales game, right? So like I was selling AI software for a while, and it was like when we started traveling again, even during COVID, and taking tests and like going through the whole hassle, we
Yeah.
sold much bigger deals than when we were remote. Like it just wasn't like you got to have some kind of interaction. My question is on the high brands. Like is like Y Combinator and Techstars, are they part of GAN or?
No, they're doing their own thing. And
Yeah.
I think rightly so. Like
Right.
GAN's like, we'll say like we say like we're like the independent coffee shops,
Mhm.
like it's all the people who are 1, 2, 3 shops, like they've got their own infrastructure and everything going on there. So
Yep.
yeah.
I have a quick question on the accelerators as a fund.
Yes, Mike.
What's the average rate of returns that these groups are finding? I mean, what are you seeing there, and the distribution of those returns?
Oh, Mike.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was getting excited. I didn't mean to interrupt you there. Was there anything
No,
else
go
you
ahead.
had?
No, that's it. That's the core of it. Yeah.
Okay. So there's 2 different types of funds we're talking about here. We have we'll say the accelerator fund, and then we have the follow-on fund. Usually they're different. Here's the amazing thing. We are now seeing, you think about venture, right? I have my own venture fund. We're in year 4.5 of our venture fund being deployed. Our average investment is 22 months old out of our fund. So tracking in our venture fund, we've deployed 4.5 million in capital, and our portfolio is valued at 7 million right now. So we're getting closer to like that 2x mark of our value to cost. Why I bring that up is I'm 4.5 years into this, with my average investment being 22 months, and it's taken that long to get, we'll say, to that 1.6x my cost. Accelerators, for the most part, they are getting into year 7 and 8 of their life cycle. And we are finally seeing the 2.5 to 3x at the pre-accelerator stage. it's taken those 7 to 8 years. Blue startups, Hawaii, you would never think like what's going to come out of there. They had their first IPO this week, huge for their fund. And that's what we're seeing again, 2.5, 3x for their fund. The follow-on fund though, I'm seeing not doing as well. It's doing 1.5 to 2x on average, still good. But I think what's interesting is you're not getting as great valuations on the we'll say the post accelerator fund. So if I was an investor and going to bet, I would bet on we'll say the 53K for 6% fund, because your valuations are just phenomenal. And then it's a numbers game. And frankly, you get 10x on one of those companies and you're making back the entire investment for that class. And if that's just 10x for one company, so you got 15x, 20x for that one company, then you've doubled your money. So just for one company doing 20x. So yeah, I'm a big fan of the pre-accelerator investment.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Mike. Did I answer it clearly? I was trying to do a clear answer.
Yeah, it did. I was just kind of curious across the group what you were finding on average, sort of as a trying to eliminate all the noise because your sample is so large, right?
Exactly.
So how people do it and all the noise and variability across each, what's just basically the average across the group with this sort of model. Again, not a scientific number by any stretch, but some sort of sampling.
Mike, what I find crazy is startups will continue to let accelerators take 6% equity for the value that they're getting, which values the company at like 600,000 or so at the beginning. So if you think a startup now, all they have to get to is 6 million to get 10x, right? Or 60 to get 100x. That's not hard to get to in this world. And just this awesome opportunity is that's where you go, man, they're just getting the right returns from the pre-accelerator, or we'll say from the initial accelerator funding. Like I think about one of my companies, we invested in a group called Icon Source, and we got a $2 million valuation, and they're doing all of the image and likeness for college athletes. They're like the leader in allowing college athletes to get sponsorship. We invested in it too, and I'm like, they're about to do a $20 million round, and we're like, that's 10x, all because we invested at 2 million. We were like, this is amazing to get in it too. But anyway, these are things you guys know. But it's just fun to go. Yeah, for an investment of 600,000, it's easy for accelerators to get their money back.
Well, I'm wondering if that's what's driving the move towards earlier and earlier investments. There's so much money slashing around that people are trying to find leverage on their money. And just as you described, this is one of those places where you can go back and start to gain some leverage because there is so much money slashing around. The risk of investing in that early stage and the probability of that early stage now getting the multiple on the next, second and third rounds potentially start to go up because they can get the funding. There's funding to go around.
That's right. And I'm frankly like not that smart. And that's why I go like when we did our fund, let's do 50 deals. Because I don't know, I'm not a good picker. At the end of the day, I need to have as many bets as possible. So anyway, I'm like, at least a few of those, hopefully we'll get 10 to 100x.
I'm curious, Pat, one of the things that was when StarFast was part of GAN, we were really like, might have been the only ones or just about the only ones still who had the fund actually taking on the cost of the program. Yes. And I remember pretty much everybody was finding a way to kind of supplement that with some sort of grant or institutional money, and then having the fund kind of piggyback either as a post-accelerator fund or just making those sort of 50 for 6% sort of deals or whatever. Is that trend still holding? Has it increased even further? It could.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So what James is effectively asking is like, you're investing capital, the 50K into each company. Then you also have to have money to run your program, right? And you have a lot of accelerators. James, here's how I would answer. It'd be like probably about a fourth of accelerators are raising a fund where the management fee is like 50%, or 40%. And that's effectively running, that allows you to run the program and give your investment capital, while the others are doing a model where maybe it's the nonprofit running the accelerator. and they're raising money for that, and then the rest is coming from a for-profit fund. Or other times too, it's, you know, it's all of a nonprofit paying for all this, and but the benefit comes back to the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would say, James, to answer your question, it's like, yeah, right around a quarter, I'd say is doing, maybe 20% is doing that model.
That was the toughest part because it was all investor money. And so when you looked at like
Yeah.
for the money you deployed, the return was awesome. But that was a third to a half of what the total base was because the program costs were so
Yep.
hot, relatively speaking. And it was just a hard chicken and egg thing to figure out. And I was curious if that's changed, if anybody else has figured it out better than we could.
No, I think the pitch is like, you have to get investors over this idea that you're going to charge a 40% or whatever, 30% management fee.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's crazy. I've never seen over 2 or 2.5%. And you're like, well, here's the deal. Like,
Yeah.
you're also getting valuations that are unbelievable at the early stage. So we just have to come to terms with like, this is an unheard of valuation, but like, I need something to run this thing.
Yep.
And when you say management fees there, you're referring to what covers the OpEx of the whole program, right?
I'm talking about if you're raising a fund to run an accelerator, right? So venture fund, right? Our first fund, 6 million, 2% management fee. Riley and I have to split $120,000 a year to go run this thing. It's 2% of that. The thing with accelerators, right, is they might have we'll say a $2 million fund to run their accelerator program. But the issue is like 2% of that is 40 grand. You can't run that. So they have to go, no, actually, like we need a 30% fee to go and run this. That way they have enough capital to go and pay for all the staff.
Yeah, that was we were $500,000 a year, and about 250K of that was just operating expenses, and that's what's on a shoestring budget. I mean, we had free space, you know, and everything like that. And also was halftime. I mean, it was like, you know, really, it was that was the hardest part to make the economic model work.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So I have a totally different question around accelerator model.
Yeah.
Why do mentors do it? I mean, it looked like the average is 120 mentors or something per fund or per group.
So I'll answer this in 2 ways. Mentors, I'll answer this in 3 ways. First, you just have people who've said, hey, I want to give back. This is an interesting model. It's I really want to just be able to see the latest technologies. I want to feel like I'm one of the cool kids by stepping in. So, you know, so I'd say there is a genuine just wanting to give back. There's a second group though that's looking for their next job. You know, that's doing this because it's some sort of business development opportunity. And you know, you try to weed those people out, but some people are just looking for the next CEO gig and feel like if they're around startups, they'll be able to get something, or, you know, if they're an accountant, they'll get some business, or a lawyer, they'll get something out of it. And then there's a third group that's now getting paid. We are now seeing the expert mentor becoming a bigger and bigger player in the accelerator world. And I don't know if I'm against it. Like, I really don't. I think there's something here about going, you mentor are smart. You're giving away, I don't know, 2 hours a week of your time, or maybe a day. We're going to pay you $2,000 to come in and do that. I think there's something that's actually really helpful about doing that. So I before that I was really against that, and I'm now seeing that. I don't know. Now much for it, less we'll call it a mentor. We'll call it an advisor or an expert coming in that's being paid to come in and teach on something.
People blow a lot more money on worthless consultants than that, right? And these mentors are far from worthless, right? So there's, I can see the potential value. We probably have the counter culture, or the culture of it cutting across that, saying, that's not fair. Those aren't the rules. We're not supposed to be charging, blah, blah.
That's right.
How about some of these accelerators? Are any of them tied in your network, tied to institutions, academic institutions?
I want to say, I think it's like 15% are tied to an academic institution.
And how are they faring compared to the others? Do you have any, are they hamstrung by the fact that they are tied to an academic institution in any way?
Yeah.
Straight question.
No, it's is a I have, I don't know, 30 minutes of thoughts on this. And
Okay.
I guess where I'm trying to go is I'm trying not to be
Give me the top 5% of the thoughts that are the most controversial, because those are
well,
the
here's my quick answer. It's the problem with universities. I'm gonna give like a PC answer, and then I think I'll get to like my more authentic answer.
skip the PC one. Skip the PC one.
Yeah. Accelerate. The incentives aren't aligned at the university. Professors don't have equity.
Yeah.
Right. It's so you guys know these things. So inherently, it's really hard to have an owner that can lead to startups' long-term success. But if I'm talking to a university group, I'm going to say things like, my university, I went to University of Delaware. I actually love my college. And University of Delaware has this amazing entrepreneurship center where it is teaching kids like the 101, 201, 301, 401 of how to do a startup that I wish I had. It is providing an incredibly valuable experience. And yet, do I see amazing? Yet, when a startup comes my way from University of Delaware asking for funding, do I have am I sort of always inclined to say no? Absolutely. Because I'm going, it was more of an academic experiment, right? So I look at it and go, are they providing a great service? Yes. Do I see their outcomes being, we'll say, in terms of funding raised and success rate being incredibly lower? Yes.
Okay, that was great. All right.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
I had a question. In your network, do you see any accelerators that are like specialized into physical prototype development and providing the tools and expertise to actually build things for?
100%. Yes, Alpha Lab Gear in Pittsburgh, awesome job with it. Hacks in China, which is run by an Irishman in China, doing a great job with that. But it's few and far between. It's
Do you know if the model is different for them as far as the 6%? Because you've got machining and all, raw materials and stuff. Do you know how those models might vary?
Good question. It's the same. It's the same money for equity. The only issue is the accelerator lasts longer. It's usually like a 6 to 9 month long accelerator program because of the amount of time it takes to turn things around.
Okay.
I can speak to hacks in China. That's where the first startup I joined was called Carbon Robotics, and the founding team went to China for 3 or 4 months, and it changed their life, right? Like the amount of heads down work you have in this other world. Talk about co-locating. Now you're co-locating in a place where all you're doing is trying to figure out how to build this thing and get it produced. It's pretty cool. I think we raised $6 million off of that, and really, to be honest, we didn't develop much further than what happened on the Hack Day. So they're now staying, but
yeah.
Are there equivalents in the US? You had mentioned another one. Who are they?
Yeah, so Alpha Lab Gear in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other one that's top of mind.
Are they tied to any institution at all, or are they an independent?
Both independent. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Douglas, I have no idea why you're interested in hardware.
He's the
kidding. I'm looking at your background.
Yeah.
I'm sort of the hardware software part of the Keenan team, so
it's so good.
Prototypes.
Oh, it's amazing.
He's a
That's his
cyborg.
kitchen. That's his kitchen. That's not a.
Yeah.
That's my house. Yep.
Douglas, keep that going. It's like such a good background.
You should see the bedroom.
That's great. Rick, are you on?
I am. I'm here. I'm just listening.
Oh, I was curious.
Hi, Rick.
Man.
Hi, Pat.
Rick's one of my favorite people in the world. Hi, Rick.
Awesome.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you.
And thanks for making the time. Yeah, I was just curious to hear, as we're kind of thinking through our next phase of Pi, just wanted to hear what questions other folks had. So I'm more in
That's great.
observational.
Oh, no worries.
I want to come
Yeah,
back more like Richter Cozy in my next life. It's like, that's just the one gift I want. It's like the hair and the beard. I'll take that.
No, man, I'm jealous of a beard too, man. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm Lebanese. You'd figure I'd get like one of those really
You
thick
guys have had the whole pandemic. Just let it go.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all you
Jack's
have.
had a pretty good one too.
Yeah, I had to get a beard for my startup. I'm building a labor marketplace for the private security industry, and I was like, well, I should probably look like a badass
Yeah,
contractor.
that's right.
So
That's right.
start it out.
Cool. This has been really interesting. See how accelerators are evolving.
Yeah. Hey, but I got one more thing for you.
Yeah.
I'll end with this, which is accelerators. You know, it's fun to kind of see where they're at in terms of their life cycle. And the startup studios now are taking off like crazy. I'll send you and I'll put an infographic here, but you know, we've now brought them into the fold, and their success rate per startup is off the charts. We're talking like, you know, I say accelerators have like it's 55-60% success rate, meaning for every startup that they work with, 55 to 60% stay alive more than 3 years. Studios are, once they're spun out, it's like a 90 to 95% success rate for 3 years or more. And the way studios run is the studio comes up with the idea and then goes and finds the team to go in and do it. And they usually have a team of marketers, accountants, tech on the studio staff, either as contractors, but many times full time. And it's just there's pumping, but what they do is they also iterate and test on ideas for 6 to 18 months. And then once the startup's, we'll say, ready to fly, you know, at the end of the 18 months, then that team goes out and goes on and does its own team. So we're seeing just incredible amount of unicorns coming out of that quickly. But it's just an interesting model, and that's we're seeing take off. But I'll put the sort of infographic in one of the white papers.
And that is what that model's similar, right? There are funds sitting behind that. They're just choosing to leverage their equity a little bit differently, right? They're thinking about problems first, organizing the teams to address those problems and trying to get as much as they can out of their dollars. But it's similar, right? I mean, it's a fund trying to get. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the only other interesting thing about it is they're taking like 40% equity.
Yeah, right. It's theirs. It's theirs.
Yeah, because they're coming up with the idea. They're providing a lot more money into it. So I just put the white paper for that here if you want to see that. And there's one more white paper too that I'll put in here. This is like the white paper I put in there is like the one that's related to investors. I'll do one more in here for you too.
A separate talk just on that. I think that'd be interesting too.
Yeah. I talked to a few of those actually over the past couple of years. They're quite intriguing actually.
They are.
And I think that what happens is internally, they've got a few things going on. So just the rate of learning is accelerated as well in terms of what's working, what's not working, where's the market, timing, questions, those types of things they can really feel out. So it may not be a matter of this deal that they're working on right now, but the quality of number 2 and 3 starts to go up because of the internal rate of learning.
That's right. It's kind of funny to think about. I've never said this before, but it's sort of like accelerators have like sort of the scarcity mindset. Like there's a set pool of startups, we got to get the best ones. And studios are coming out with the abundance mindset of going, what problems do we need to solve? Let's go do that. You know, so but maybe they have the scarcity mindset when it comes to talent. Like we got to go find good talent for them. But it's like the world's the oyster for studios.
How are they recruiting the talent? Are they just overpaying people, or it's just a bunch of Stanford grads that are like, man, I don't have an idea, but I'm sure like to build something?
It's more the latter. You know, you think about all these like great executors who are just like, I don't know what the trends are. Like that's how my brain works. Like kind of, I'm frankly like I'm kind of that way of like I'm not a visionary. I'm just, you know, but you put me in sort of in a CEO role, I will hustle, you know, and I can set like where we need to go, but I need the 0 to 1 and maybe even like steps 1, 2, and 3, but I can get us from like 1 to 10 pretty easily.
I wonder if there's a space here for transitioning veterans. So like I was a Navy SEAL for 10 years.
Yeah.
And like I get most of my executional background from that. I mean, I managed 70+ person teams doing really intricate, crazy things. And then, you know, I went to the startup world and like the first robot delivery, like these people literally had no idea how to deal with the fact that we were having some problems. And I was like, hold on, everybody. Let's just like make a couple quick decisions. We're gonna pull back, like blah, blah, and like basic project management
Yes.
with some calm, like we fix the problem. Is there a veteran-based one? If not, there should be. Or at
No,
least-
not that I know of. So opportunity there for sure. Because yeah, because you see accelerators for veterans, and it's like, I'm with you. They've all been fine. But I feel like the studio for veterans I haven't seen it done yet. And
well,
it's
it'd be a mix, right? So if you take a tech leader or a tech creator with whatever, and then just put in operations, execution, rock star, put the two next to each other. Take a fighter pilot or a SEAL with +6 or 8 years. Like you're talking about people who like never give up and can like fly airplanes at 500 miles an hour with like thousands of decisions at once without getting their feathers ruffled, right?
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting. James, you got to start it. Get UVC to put it together.
There's actually, I'm thinking about there's an institute for veterans out here. I'm curious if they would be interested in. Well, I don't know how that would play politically, but
yeah, at Syracuse, it's it's big time. It's unbelievable how many resources they have behind this, specifically on startups, new ventures, and everything else. I don't know about high, it's not necessarily high growth focus, but there's quite a population of entrepreneurial veterans that go through that place.
Guys, I think we're on to something. Like my best friend from high school, he's a major in the Army. I was with him over the weekend, and he's like, "Can I just come shadow your COO?" And I'm like, "Of course, Ryan." He's like, "I'll never start my own company, but man, like I'm literally going back to Iraq next month, and I'm leading 5,000 people. He's chief of staff of his brigade, and he's like, so, but like." I don't know, like, how do I do this? And I think there's something here about giving, but I think we put them in the founder role and not maybe a number 2 role. And I think we're hearing something really fun about going, he wants to be COO, but we don't have a good path for him. Or like, help him be an awesome CEO to a company we've already created would be awesome.
So I think for my path, so I saw Bill Gurley's, speech about like, Bob Dylan or whatever, going to New York to learn how to sing folk music, right? You're like, wait, what? That's how it happened? You go to the Mecca, you learn the business. I knew that I wanted to go build a company, but that my startup landia, vocabulary wasn't there yet. So I moved to San Francisco, did 2 years of startups, then started my company here in Rochester. And I think most guys transitioning out of the military aren't going to be able to do that, right? So the role to be able to like get somebody into a place where they're managing people and projects, but in a high growth environment, I think they'll ramp right along with it. And within, as the company grows,
that's right.
They've already shown they can do it. Yeah.
That's right. And one of the best things about studios is the stage gate model. They use a lot of going like, we got to hit these goals. And if we don't hit these goals, we're done. So what I like is there's clear markers for in terms of like weeks that a stage gate has to happen, and also clear defined goals for each one. And I think that's really good for military guys too. It's good for everybody, but I think especially good for military guys just to go, hey, if this doesn't happen by this date, we're going to shut it down and move on to the next, to the next mission.
Very cool. Well, I'll email you.
Yeah, please. I'll put my email right here for you too.
Pat, thank you so much.
Mike, thank you guys. Douglas, thanks.
Yeah.
Rick, great seeing you as always.
Good seeing you too. Thanks for doing
Great
this.
questions. Oh yeah, and James, way to lead this. This is awesome.
No, I appreciate you doing it, man. This has been good.
Be in touch, I think you got James's wheels turning on something, but I might be reading into it.
Quiet James is a dangerous James.
Yes.
The call is over.
Yeah, and I appreciate you doing this, especially. I hope you feel better soon.
Oh,
I mean,
Thanks.
that's-
I literally feel fine. That's the problem. You know, it's like, yeah, I feel completely fine. I mean, you heard me. I'm like a little
Yeah.
tired, but
No, you're the same Pat I've always known. So
yeah, exactly. No, thanks. It's more like a man. This is gonna affect the next like. Did I say I'm supposed to go to my wife's 20 year high school graduation?
Ah,
Or what do you call it? So your
I
union
heard it
thing.
trying to get out of things, but I think you went to a
You
news.
could have thought of an easier way to get out of that, right?
Exactly. I'm super sick.
there are less lethal ways than doing that, Pat.
Like paint the test strip with the pink that has to show up. Yeah, definitely
Hey, how
got
do you
COVID.
point out the ones you hated in high school?
Yeah, that would have
Yeah,
been
exactly.
a much better.
Well, thanks, guys.
No
Thank you.
problem.
I have one selfish question. If now that we're done with the call,
Yeah,
to see you guys are all been accelerators. Like I looked at all the positives that you wrote on there, and like one of them was like 90% is like pitching. Like, well, I don't need pitching. You know, I did the San Francisco thing and learned that, and you know, did that away. But I met with Anu Harihana from the Y Combinator Growth Run last week in Missouri, and like, you know, she wasn't trying to convince me to do Y Combinator, but also was at the same time. And it's weird because at this point, it's like it costs me. It's gonna be a fine against me to go to Y Combinator because I've already raised a bunch more money on better terms than that. So I guess it's what's the top real reason to go? Is it? I'm assuming it's the focus and the mentors.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I always tell every founder, I'm like, hey, you got to figure out like what you need first, you know, and then go find the accelerator for that. Like some people need corporate connections, and I'm like, great, like let's go find which corporate works with which accelerator, and let's go there to get the corporate connections. Some people want government connections, so I'm like, great, go head down to Decode, right, in DC, so you can get connected with all the government agencies down there. Like some people want investment. I'm like, hey, if you need to get the next level of investment, I'm like, yeah, go to the YCs of the world, you know, that are going to help you get that next round. But I'm with you of like, if you're sitting here going, man, yeah, it's like, I don't know what you guys need to go scale, but and you can always shoot me a note and go, hey, here's what I really found I need. It's like these 3 things. And I can then go, hey, here are the 4 accelerators I would really recommend based off that. But it's just like picking a university, you know, it's like, do you want to party? Well, go to, you know, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, you know, or Ohio State, or, you know, University, what's the one in Ohio? It's like crazy.
Slippery Rock.
Yeah, Slippery Rock. Exactly. Yeah. So you're just like,
I dropped out of college, so it
it's
fits my current trajectory.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, but yeah, just seriously, shoot me a note and be like, hey, these are the 3 things I'm looking for, or just one thing, and I can be like, here's the ones I would recommend.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah, anytime.
All right. Thank you, Pat.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, James. All right, bye, guys.